Welcome to eTeacher Plus for Pakistan. eTeacher Plus for Pakistan is a program that provides professional development opportunities to English language teachers and learners across Pakistan. These programs are offered through global online courses, massive open online courses, webinar series, and then engaging the alumni into multiple professional development opportunities. Some of the opportunities that are initiated in the alumni chapter are eTeacher webinar series, that is the series that you are watching right now, and eTeacher mentorship program. The program is fully funded by the Regional English Language Office at the US Embassy Islamabad. Evolution is the local implementing partner for the eTeacher program in Pakistan. If you wish to gain more information about the program, please follow Relo Pakistan on Facebook, or you can visit www.evolution.com.pk/eteacher. As a part of eTeacher Pakistan webinar series, today's series is going to focus on critical reading skills in English language classrooms. To present on this topic, we have with us today Saima Mubashira. Saima is currently serving as Assistant Professor of English in Higher Education Department of Punjab. She has earned her MPhil degree in linguistics and currently is pursuing her doctoral degree from National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad. She has over 10 years of experience in teaching language courses to tertiary and degree level students at different prestigious institutions of Punjab. She is an eTeacher alumnus who completed Transitioning to Teaching Online course from University of Minnesota, which was sponsored by Relo Pakistan. Apart from that, she has done multiple MOOCs under the American English banner, such as Professional Development for Teacher Trainers by Arizona State University, Integrating Critical Thinking Skills by World Learning, Using Education Technology by Iowa State University, and then following American English Live Series 2 and 3. So let's talk about what we will be learning in today's webinar. In today's webinar, Saima is going to talk about some of the differentiations between simple reading and critical reading. She is going to share with you various skills and strategies required to promote critical reading. And then she is going to unfold some of the activities that you can implement in your English language classrooms to integrate critical reading skills in your students. There are some amazing resources that she will be sharing with you, identifying pre-reading activities, while reading activities, and post-reading activities. And I'm very certain that you are going to go well equipped by the end of this webinar. So without any delay, can I please welcome Saima to officially begin with the webinar.
Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about a few suggestions to implement critical reading skills in English language classrooms. Reading is a primary language skill and its importance needs not emphasizing, especially in ESL and EFL setting, where the input mainly comes through reading. Having said that, unfortunately in our traditional classroom settings, reading is defined in a very limited way. It is considered as an ability to extract certain information and then answer simple and straightforward questions. Well, reading is something more than that, not only for academic purposes, but also for the life of the students outside their classroom. And what makes a reading so important for the academic and social success of students, the idea comes from the fact that we live in a very technical, in a very specialized world, a word that is a word of information load. You all would agree that yes, there are a few people whose challenge is the access to information, but our millennials are mainly faced with the challenge of information overload. We all are viewing it that how COVID-19 situation actually accompanied with relentless flood of information, and how WHO's Director General had to call it infodemic to describe a situation where we are not only fighting against a pandemic, but also against all that misinformation or conspiracies. So in a situation like this, it becomes almost obligatory for us, the educators, and especially for the language teachers, to help our students to guide their way through this maze of information load successfully. Now, if we see what critical reading is, critical reading is a more active way of reading, more engaged way of reading. It involves higher order thinking. it does not approach a text only to see what it says, but it also it also enables the reader to see how and why the text says a thing. It actually it actually looks for assumptions and then looks for the bias if there is present, if there is any bias present, and it enables readers to challenge those assumptions. While we compare simple reading with critical reading and the goals of simple reading with critical reading, uh, we come to know that simple reading focuses on understanding, and while the focus in critical reading is on evaluating and interpreting information. Simple reading is actually considered as an inability to look for certain information and then restate it, while critical reading is the ability to infer meaning, to read not only for words but also for ideas. And one thing that actually distinguishes these two kinds of reading is that in simple reading, the reader mainly goes in the direction of the text. It accepts what the writer says uncritically, while in critical reading, the reader actually goes against the direction of the text and see if there is some counter evidence or counter argument available. While we can see that there is a common adjective associated with these two terms, critical reading and critical thinking, we can predict that these two might be related in some way. Right? Critical reading is actually reading while you are thinking critically. The relationship between reading and critical thinking is very interesting. It is a dialectical relationship in which critical reading improves critical thinking, and while critical thinking actually fosters our ability of reading critically. While we are reading critically or during critical reading, actually we exercise our judgment and stop accepting things on their face value. So this might be a complicated or a time consuming task. And while it is okay to be slow in certain situations, there most of the time our students, especially for their classroom activities, are time bound. So there are a few strategies that are teachable or adaptable to all levels uh, that can help students not only to improve their understanding of the text, but they also ensure efficiency on the part of the students. And this chart actually summarizes a few of the before, during, and then after reading strategies that student can implement. And now we will discuss them briefly one by one. Preview or overviewing is a very good strategy. And one thing that I always suggest to my student, and that definitely does not include in the traditional sense of the previewing, is that to look for who the author of the text is and to check for the authenticity of the source it comes from. Similarly, the students can look for a certain indicators, like they can look for the titles and subtitles or the pictures, or if there are any graphs, and then they can look into introduction section. So previewing actually enables students to get an idea about the organization and the content of the text before actually reading it closely. Annotating is another very important strategy. Annotating is something more than highlighting and underlining. It is actually a process in which the reader adds notes and their own explanations and even their reactions to the text. While it is very easy to annotate uh, a paper-based text, online text it can be a challenge to annotate an online text, but fortunately there are certain annotating tools available online, and Factual Note is a one-off online tool that enables you not only to annotate text but also videos or web pages. It allows you to highlight different parts of the text using different color and then add notes and then pin pages and do other kind of things. So annotating can be a very useful strategy. Each text, each writer writes in response to certain other writers, and it is generally a good idea to fit a text into existing conversation in, in order to generate the accurate idea what the writer wants to convey. So I always tell my students to use Venn diagrams to compare and contrast two similar text or two texts on the same topic and identify that what are their unique points and what they or the both of the text both or more than two texts. If there are more than two texts, then what is common about them. Questioning is a very useful strategy that enhances understanding. Asking a few factual and evaluating questions about the text is very important, especially when the students are given the long and more complicated text. It is advisable to ask a question about each paragraph or each section of the text. It not only enhances their understanding, but it also helps in better retention of the text. Then this post-reading activity strategy, which is called outlining and summarizing. Generally, students confuse these two things, and I use this picture to elaborate it to them that how outline is different from a summary. So if a text is a whole building, outline is actually putting all those strands together that form the foundation of the text. It is actually outline is actually to look for the structure of the text, and summary is all those ideas that support that main idea, and summary is basically looking for the content of the text. Self-reflecting is a very self-reflection is a very useful strategy, because each text, especially if a few texts that we give students at advanced levels, challenge their existing beliefs, their own assumptions, their own attitude towards the topic. So it is very important for them to see that what are those ideas that challenge their existing ideas, and how far they are ready to accept those uh, accept that difference of opinion that they have come across in the text. Critical reading is an as a blanket term is a hypernym for many sub skills that need to be taught explicitly inside the classroom. And the role of teacher while teaching critical reading sub skills is very important. It is actually helping students to overcome their lack of knowledge, or to redeem for their lack of understanding. But a teacher, especially while teaching critical reading, a teacher should be very careful that he should know that he should not play the role of primary knower. He should only be facilitator and explain different things, and trust the interpretations that students make. The first and very important sub skill to read a text critically is to identify author's purpose. It is to ask for about the why of a text. The writer writes a text for a purpose, and it is very important to determine that if if the writer has written the text to persuade the audience, or to inform them, or to entertain them. We can always give these short exercises in which we can assign text to the students and ask them to determine what the author's purpose is, and we can adjust the length and complexity of the text given according to the levels of our students. Reading for tone and stance, each writer has an attitude towards the topic, and we can look for certain textual clues to explore what the topic is. The tone actually determines a very predominant part of our understanding, because there are a number of tones a text can have. A text can be very formal, it can be informal, it can be humorous, it can be sarcastic, or even it can be vindictive. So generally, students should be told that they should look for the specific details the author chose to include. For example, if two writers, different writers um, are narrating their first day on treadmill, the experience of their first day on their treadmill, and one describes it that there I was on the run for my life, while the other describes it was like a power run. These two sentences convey two very different attitude towards their experience. Similarly, comparisons are very telling about the stance and the tone of the writer. The comparisons with the positive things mm, actually mean that the writer has a positive attitude towards the text. And similarly, if the comparisons are made with the negative and and the grave things, then the attitude is not approving, at least. And similarly, we can look for various word choices to say to see that if the writer is the experiences shared by the writing are pleasant or unpleasant, or if the writer is approaching the topic approvingly or disapprovingly. Inferencing, actually, we do not only read for words, we read for ideas. So inferencing is not only to read the lines, but read between the lines and read beyond the lines. Inferencing is to look what the text means. Uh, one common mistake that student might make, but uh, I would like to say that we all tend to make, is that we make wrong inferences about a statement. Either we make wrong inference or either we over infer. For example, if I say that if I read it somewhere that until April, Pakistan's death toll from COVID-19 remains dramatically below a pre-projection, it we might infer the statement A that coronavirus pandemic has proven less virulent in Pakistan so far. But we cannot infer statement B that Pakistani people possess strong immunity and COVID-19 is not going to harm them, because there might be some other undetermined causes for this projected and actual difference in statistics. And we similarly, students need to learn, they need to be taught how to identify and evaluate the argument. And in order to evaluate an argument, they actually need to know the structure of an argument. An argument mainly comprises of two parts. One is a claim. Claim can be a claim of fact, it can be a claim of a value, and then the support that is given to sustain that claim. In absence of a support, the claim uh, does not cannot be counted as an argument. Support can mainly be provided by giving reasons. Reasons are generally presented in the form of invoking common held beliefs and the shared values and moral systems, while evidence is actually more scientific in nature. It might include some statistical report or a research study or expert opinion. So an argument should have a claim and then at least reason or evidence to support that claim. Similarly, we should look if there is an ambiguity present or if there is any bias. For bias, we can look for framing. Framing is a very intelligent and very clever thing that a writer can do. They can use some qualifying adjectives to either undermine or overstate statistical value. For example, someone can say that only 40% of people supported his official statement versus a whooping number of 40% believed his official statement. Similarly, there can be exaggerations present in the text that mean that there is a bias in the text. For example, some phrases like "as a show is breaking records," mm, it does not clarify which records already exist, and he is always wrong. Nobody can always be wrong, and sales are sky high. Making such claims when no evidence is available. Another very important sub-skill is differentiating between observation and interpretation. Observation is describing the thing as you see it, as it is out there, while interpretation is looking through colored lenses. And generally, when we describe a thing, we describe it from our own perspective, and same goes for the writers. Why it is important to distinguish between observation and a fact? Because it allows us to identify bias, it allows us to distinguish fact from opinion, and it allows us to examine the assumptions that are made in the text. For example, if there is an observation that she got an A on the text, depending upon the perception or the personal experience of the person, someone can interpret that she is very smart, while another person can interpret that she actually cheated in exam. So students need to be very careful while reading, and they should know that how to differentiate between observation and interpretation. Similarly, facts and opinion, these are facts are verifiable statements, while opinions are personal statements of belief, and students should be guided that how these two are different and how most of the time opinions are presented as a fact. One common example is the stereotype that we listen in our daily life. The, the, the chart that you are viewing in your screen right now actually um, is a classroom activity that I assign to my undergrad students, and the list comprises of a few factual statements and then various stereotypes based on gender, ethnicity, race, and academic discipline and profession of the people. And I ask my students to differentiate facts from opinions. And to my great surprise, uh, most of them were unable to distinguish facts from opinion, and they mistook many of the opinions or these stereotypes as fact. And when initially I tried to explain it to them, they were resistant to accept the ideas, and they were telling me, "No, ma'am, women are poor driver." Later on, I used this infographic to teach them how to apply a step by step analysis to see that if the given statement has some subjective adjectives present, or if there are certain words, certain verbs like think or seem, and if there is any evidence present, and if there is evidence present, is the evidence reliable? And even if the evidence is reliable, can we have any counter argument? And uh, after going through this infographic, when I gave them another set of stereotype, they did far better than the previous activity. Similarly, there are certain signal words and phrases that we can use, that we can teach them to use in order to identify between factual statements and then opinions and speculations and rumors. Definitely, this table summarizes a few of commonly used words to frame a statement as a fact, opinion, or a speculation. But definitely, this is not something set in stone, and it can be variable. But generally, these words give idea in the direction of the truthfulness of the text. And when I gave this table to the students and asked them to analyze these four different accounts of a single event, and asked them to distinguish between fact, opinion, speculation, and rumor, they were actually able to, most of them were actually able to analyze it correctly. Last but not the least, taking perspective is very important skill, not only for reading, but also for understanding people around us. It helps us to look beyond our own point of view, and it helps us to develop empathy for the people. This is one very useful activity that I adapted from a paper published in 2011, and it involves a few pre-reading activities, and then during and after post-reading activities. As a pre-reading activity, we might assign students a fairy tale and generate a discussion about what their most favorite fairy tales are and how they perceive the theme of injustice, especially in their favorite fairy tales. And then as during reading activity, they are assigned to read the story of Snow White, and then frame or then to write certain questions to be asked to Snow White's mother, to ask us, for example, that why was she so cruel to Snow White, or what would she have done if she was her own biological daughter. Definitely, these questions will help students to understand to understand things from the perspective of Snow White's mother. Definitely, it will not. It is not to encourage them to become like Snow White mother, but it allows them to understand how people use various justifications to the wrongdoings they do to other people. And similarly, as a post-reading activity, students can be asked to rewrite the story from the perspective of Snow White mother. So while we have taught these sub skills to our students individually, one by one, embedded in our entire reading course, we can assign them an activity which I have designed, which I call as Corona is a Hoax. It comprises of two parallel texts dealing with the subject of Corona, and then I have given uh, the sources they come from, and then we can ask students to apply all those sub skills simultaneously to analyze those two texts. They might inspect for the authenticity of the claim, or they might see for certain language indicators, and they also see the authenticity of the source and credibility of the evidence that both of these texts have. And similarly, they can see that if there are statements of facts and there are various statements of belief. Uh, Hopefully, these activities or these strategies or skills that I have described will help you to design your own activities and to adapt it according to your own teaching context. But you might find them useful while teaching critical reading. Um, that's all for now. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saima, for sharing your sense on critical reading. I'm sure our audience will be going well equipped with some excellent resources and activities that they can use in their classrooms. The audience, if you have any comments, questions, and or suggestions, please feel free to write us on eteacher@evolution.com.pk. If you are an eTeacher alumni and would like to present under this eTeacher Pakistan webinar series, please write us on eteacher@evolution.com.pk. We wish you happy teaching and happy learning.